Hi creative friends, this is Sreya and thank you so much for being here. This is part 2 of my favorite colors and brands, and in this video I will show you all the blues, greens, and neutrals that I absolutely love. Now I will list all of these paints in the description below. So let's begin with the blues. I'm not as picky with the brands I use for my blues. I'm so much more adventurous. So if I walk into an art shop and I see the way a paint looks in the bottle, I am more likely to pick it up. Whereas with my reds and oranges, I tend to stick to what I know and love. Now I'm going to start off with the Prussian blue. This is the color that Van Gogh used for Starry Night. Now I am going to lay it down on the paper and you're going to see the magic of Prussian blue. It is rich, mysterious, shadowy, and decadent. Look at that. Now, a fun tidbit is that some art historians suggest that Van Gogh had a color disorder that was caused by the medication he was on, which meant that he saw things through a yellow lens. But there are other art experts who say that no, Van Gogh was a genius at color and he was just a brilliant artistic genius, because at the time his use of color was quite revolutionary and extraordinary. So what do you guys think? I personally don't think that he had a color disorder. I think that he was an absolute genius, ahead of his time, way ahead of his time. So now I am going to show you the Liquitex Professional High Viscosity Ultramarine Blue in a green shade. And all of the ultramarine blues, to me, they are a staple of my studio. Like, they're just your classic blue. It's a tried and true, a blue. Now, high viscosity, just it's the texture of the paint. So say something that's high viscosity would be like honey or molasses, and something that was low viscosity would be like, say, turpentine or alcohol. So the high viscosity paints last a long time. So if you take a look at that blue, it's just a true blue. Now I'm going to talk about the phthalo blue, and phthalo leans slightly towards green anyways, so it does have a very cool undertone. And I'm just making sure that I'm cleaning my brush out completely because I want to give you the truest depiction of the color as much as possible. So look at that. It reminds me of the sapphire stone. It's just luscious. Look at that. And I'm sorry, you guys, I keep on saying look at that, but sometimes I just run out of words because it is truly a beautiful, beautiful blue. So this over here is a cerulean blue, and it reminds me of the Mediterranean Sea. And whenever I look at this color, I almost want to just dive right in. It's so calming and welcoming, but still really strong. So like when I see this blue, it's almost like an invitation to just relax. Okay, so now I'm going to show you the Blick matte acrylic, and I mentioned this in my first video. This is a great line of paints to purchase when you are unsure about what your color palette is or the colors that you like, because it is a very good quality of paint, true color, and it's a very low cost item. These cost about $2.70. Now this one is called Sapphire, but it is not a sapphire color at all. Like, to me, that is a sapphire color. But this is a light blue, but it's still really luscious. Like, look at that. It is a beautiful color. Over here, I have the Folk Art brand. Now, this is a cheap paint that you can find in the craft section of a big box store, and it should be like $2. And these two colors I really love. Now, I understand that this brand isn't going to be found everywhere, certainly not outside of North America. So, you know, I'm sorry for people who are in other parts of the world who don't have access to these paints, but perhaps you could check out the cheap paints that you have wherever you live, because when I travel, I generally find that most places do have a cheaper brand of paint, like it's a poster paint or something like that. But this one here is cobalt blue, and look at that, it's electric. It almost jumps off the page. And I wouldn't expect that from a cheap brand. Like, it's only $2, you know, around $2. Uh-oh. And the second brand color I want to show you, it's also folk art, and this is called Ink Spot. Now, I have recently just fallen in love with this color. It is almost like blue ink, and I am completely smitten with this. Look at that. Oh my goodness. It's just luscious. And if I laid like 3 or 4 coats on that, it's going to deepen it extraordinarily. So this over here is a Craftsmart paint, and it's multi-surface premium chalk paint, and it's called Deep Teal. And it is a really beautiful teal color. And the fact that it's chalk paint is like a bonus. So look at that. It's a delicious blue-green. This over here is turquoise, and it's Liquitex ink. Is that not a deliciously beautiful color? So this is Blick Studio Acrylic, and this is metallic teal. And this is a new paint for me, and I've just been experimenting with it. I really love it. Like, normally I don't like metallic paints. Well, I mean, except for the golds. I do have a predisposition towards golds. But I tried this out, and I'm really digging it. Like, it is just luscious. Look at that. So whenever I order my paints, I tend to add 1 or 2 colors that I don't normally buy. Like, they're totally and completely, I almost pick them randomly, because I want to keep on trying new things and adding new things into my stash of paints, just to expand my color palette. So now we're gonna go into the greens, and over here I have chromium oxide green. It's a Liquitex acrylic. And I would like to mention that there are cultural differences when it pertains to colors. Like, for instance, red is in the West. It has, you know, the connotations of creativity and passion and all of those things, but it also suggests danger. And that's why, like, you know, a lot of the like say a stop sign or signs that will tell you caution or poison or whatever. They have red in it because in the West, that tends to, red connotates danger, as well as all the other ones that I just mentioned. But say in India, red just, you know, it has no negative connotations. It means fertility, abundance, power. And usually when we get married, we go for, well, first of all, very bright colored clothing, but red is a common theme. So there are cultural differences with color. And oh, let me just talk about this green over here. I love this green. It just reminds me of a forest. Like, it's not like too bright. It's just a gorgeous, luscious green. And over here is emerald green, and this is FW Artist Acrylic Ink. And this is a really bright green. Like, look at that. It's so fresh. It reminds me of grass. And when you put those two side by side, you can really see the difference, like how this is so muted and neutralized, and that's like a pop of fresh color. Now, this is a fairly new color for me, and I really love it. It's yellow-green medium, and I call it a lime green, and so it reminds me of, say, like, you know, a fresh avocado. It really pops. Like, look at that. And whenever I add this to my page, it completely changes the whole direction of where my page is going, color-wise, and I really love that. That's a beautiful color. And this is one of these colors that I just randomly picked the last time I ordered my paints. And so it really, I find is helpful that, you know, if I just totally step outside my comfort zone and experiment, I really don't know, like, yeah, sometimes I'm going to get a paint that I don't love, but sometimes I'm going to get a paint that I really love. And especially with these Blick matte acrylics, they are so cheap. Like, they're $2.90. So it's not like I'm spending, you know, $50 on a jar of paint that I'm not ever going to use. And that's a fresh paint as well. It's very similar to this color, but this is transparent ink, and this is just like an acrylic ink, so it's opaque. Now this over here is Blue Green Deep, and it is a, like, it's a luscious green. It reminds me of moss and a forest and leaves and just nature. I love it. So this here is a cheap brand of paint. It's called Americana. And again, it should be like $2. And this color is called Hauser Light Green. And it's just like a perfect olive green. I hope the camera can pick up on it. Like, it's very muted. It's not similar to any of these other greens here. I don't know, like I said, I don't know if the camera can pick it up, but in real life, it is much more neutralized than any of the other greens. Well, this is pretty neutralized as well. And that's it for my greens. Now I'm going to show you a titanium white. I used to use this all the time, and the basic rule, I guess, is that you should always have titanium white in your studio. But honestly, I don't use this very much anymore. Once I discovered the Waverly chalk paint in Cashew and ink, I use my Cashew instead of my titanium white because I just love the chalk paint. I love the color of this. It's more creamier, softer, more muted, richer. But I understand that this is not available in all parts of the world. I had somebody who lives in Malaysia who said that they do not have access to the Waverly chalk paint, and on Amazon it's really pricey. So I totally understand that. So I'm sorry if you live in a part of the world where this is not available, but perhaps you could find something that is similar. But with these two paints alone, I can make an infinite array of grays. And then when I add my Liquitex transparent burnt sienna and I add a darker blue, I can either warm up my neutral or cool it down. Now, I did make a video about neutrals where I talked about that a little bit, and I'm still going to demonstrate it, and I'll put a link to that particular video in the description below. But I took a class many years ago, and I'm not sure, if the teacher was obsessed with neutrals, but all we did for, I don't know, it was like 4 months or 5 months or something, all we did was simply make neutrals. And you can spend like your whole lifetime creating neutrals. There's no limit to it, really. And it kind of broke my brain. And so I love neutrals. I understand their importance. I appreciate neutrals. I value neutrals. I need neutrals, but I don't want to complicate things. I want to simplify things. And the way I mix my neutrals, I can get not only an infinite array of neutrals, but just delicious, luscious, rich, moody, evocative neutrals. So now this is just the Cashew, and I'm not sure if the camera is going to pick it up because it is, it is very close to a white. It's not a titanium white by any stretch, but so this is a Cashew just by itself. It's a creamy, delicious, luscious, warm neutral. Okay, so that is just the Cashew chalk paint by itself. Now I'm going to add a little bit of the ink, and all I'm going to do is add an increasing amount of the ink color with, I'm going to add an increasing amount of the ink to my Cashew. And what's going to happen is, see, that is a rich, warm neutral right there. And then I'm going to add a little more of the ink. And I'm just increasingly adding more and more of the ink. Now you can also substitute the ink color for Payne's Gray and find something that is more suitable for the Cashew. Like, say, if you don't have access to this chalk paint, this is just what I use, and I love it, and it works for me. So can you see how I'm just increasing the darker color, and I'm just getting a gorgeous really beautiful neutrals here. And you can just, like, say in between this and this, there's probably 10 subtle shades of neutrals that you can make. I'm not gonna go that much in depth, but you can add, so in between like this and this, there's probably 10 shades that you can put in various stages of the ink. And then I'm going to show you the ink just by itself. It is a really delicious, dark, luscious color. And the ink just by itself is, I'm going to put it right here. So with this color and this color, that's the Cashew Waverly brand ink. And this is a Cashew Waverly brand, this is a Waverly brand chalk paint in Cashew, and that's ink. With just those two, you can get an infinite array of neutrals. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my Liquitex Transparent Burnt Sienna, and I'm just going to add a drop of it there. That might even be too much, really. And I'm going to make sure my brush is really clean. And look at that. You just get a really, I probably added a bit too much of that, but look at that. You're going to get a delicious neutral right there. And it's a warm neutral. And probably use less than I used. I have a heavy hand with that, unfortunately. So now I'm going to take a little bit of my ink spot, which is a darker blue. You can use any darker blue, you know, a phthalo, an ultramarine, Prussian, whatever you have. And just a little bit, just a little bit. And I'm going to add it there. And it's going to cool it down. It's still a neutral, but now it's a cool neutral. And I'm going to put it over top of there. And it just cooled it down. So that is the way I mix my neutrals, and I really, you know, love doing that because it just keeps it simple, you know, and I'm not like stressed out about mixing neutrals because you really can go down a rabbit hole. And if that's what you would like to do, that is totally fine. It's just that I don't like doing that. Now I'm just gonna show you my gold, and this is Textile Primo Gold, and I just saw this right now, but it's made in Italy, so it is an Italian paint. And I'm just gonna place it on top of this blue here, and you're just gonna see how beautiful that is. Like, look at that pop of color. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to use the iridescent gold, and this leans more towards white, and look at that, just luscious, truly beautiful. Now I am going to do another separate video on studio logs, what they are, how I use them, etc., but I'm just going to talk about it briefly here as it pertains to color. You can have a studio log that is dedicated solely to color, or a part of your studio log that is dedicated solely to color, and you can experiment. You can put down the color that you love, and you can write down, you know, a whole bunch of stuff about what your personal attachment is to that color, the meanings, the symbolism, etc., etc., etc. But I'll go more in depth about that when I talk about studio logs. So if you've watched all the way to the end, thank you so much. I hope this has been helpful to you. These are my favorite blues, greens, and neutrals. So thank you so much, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.